All right, cool. Thanks again, everybody, for joining in. This afternoon, we will be joined by our awesome colleague over at the VA Human Resource Department, Maureen Silva. And I'm here with my awesome colleague over in the Central Valley region, Emilia Gaitan Reed. Hi, everyone. And so for today, it's going to be just another informational interview with an employer. We chose VA for this session because we've been receiving a lot of messages and uh, inquiries from veterans as well as case managers of vets interested in working for the VA. And so we also get inquiries for veterans that want to just join a federal job. So we figured, let's hear it from the HR because they're definitely going to know as far as like what the ins and outs are and what the requirements are. Um, Please hold your questions at the very end of the presentation. There will be a session for that. If there is, if you're unable to go on video or get yourself off of mute, if you have the option to, you can always send a message in the chat box below, and then we'll also go ahead and read that off as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. So our first question is going to be for Maureen. What is your name and what do you do?
My name's Maureen Silva. I'm a senior Department of Veteran Affairs, VA Palo Alto. I have several titles. This is one of them. I'm the and I'm also the healthcare recruiter, facility healthcare recruiter. So I wear many, many hats. Go into what each one is, or can you hear me
Awesome.
okay?
Thank you. Yes, we heard you. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me okay? Let's try that again.
Yes.
Okay, great. Wow, Maureen, that definitely is a lot of hats. So going on into our next question, can you tell us what the best thing about your job is?
Doing what I do. Working at the healthcare center, I started when I was 18. Been here forever, going on 30 years. And to see the growth in people, for example, if I'm working with, a 30% disabled vet and, you know, the to see the growth in individuals once they come on board, they might come on board in an entry level position, but really within the government and within the VA in particular, you set your own destiny. And to see them plan their careers, sometimes with the help of myself, and sometimes they just get it from coming in the door. And it's like, oh, I can go here and I'm interested in this. I can jump to this service and get this promotion. That to me is the best thank you to me, is to see somebody else take advantage and see them actually grow in their career, grow as an individual, grow as a person, and it doesn't matter what the age is. For example, I have two veterans that, they were in the military, they got honorably discharged, and then they got in a little bit of trouble. Well, that's fine. Background investigations, we're only looking at 10 years. They didn't get in trouble for 10 years. They were a little bit older. I said, no problem. And we worked on their paperwork and we got them in the door. They both have just retired. One retired last year and one retired this year, after serving 20 years with the VA. So to me, that is remarkable. That's what I love. That is a personal, win for me. I see, even though it's a win for them, I see it as a win for me to see somebody grow like that.
No, for sure. helping veterans with employment. That's definitely one of the perks that we get to share in their successes. Definitely.
Yes.
Thanks, Maureen.
Yeah, that's really cool that, not only did they get a position within the VA, but they also retired out with the VA. So, I mean, it really just shows that there are, possibilities with people that have, uh, questionable background, especially when it had happened like 10, 15 years ago. So thank you so much for sharing that. So our next question is like, because you work for the VA, what's it like to work for Palo Alto? Like, what's the culture like, the people? What are the challenges that VA Palo Alto has given you within your position? If you feel comfortable to also share other people's, challenges that they've encountered within the VA as well.
Working with the VA, again, I started when I was 18. I worked for 12, 13 years, and then I left, ran my own business, and I came back. Um, Working with the folks I work with, and not just in HR, but I'm talking, you know, my colleagues, my outreach events, everybody. You don't know who knows who. And the more people that we, as in, VA assisting folks and trying to get the word out about the VA, the more people we can touch, and to make it a personal note, the more people I can touch with speaking engagements, you don't know who knows who. And I'm hoping that they can take from me a little bit of something that they're interested in about the VA and tell somebody else. And then maybe that person might be a little interested, or they might discuss something, with their friends about, hey, I was kind of thinking about this. I heard this. What do you think? It's just getting us out there, getting the VA out there. Um, I really haven't ran into too many issues. One thing that did happen, and I'm proud of it to say now, when I left the VA and I tried to come back, I had changed. It had been, several years in between. I became a mom, my face had changed and my hair color changed. And when I went back and started applying for my job, applying for any job, um, nobody was biting. Even though I had been at the VA for 13 years, I didn't get any calls. Nobody was interested. And back then, we would do the paper resumes, right? So I thought, well, somebody's got to remember my name. Somebody's got to be interested in something. So I kind of got creative and I started applying for every job in the VA, everything at VA Palo Alto that came open. I knew I was not qualified as a physician. I knew I wasn't qualified as a nurse, but you know what? I applied. One day I brought in 37 applications and I set it on the HR desk, and the counter person kind of looked at me like, are you kidding? And I said, no, I am going to make them in HR do their work. You guys are going to have to tell me I am not qualified for this job. And I'm going to keep applying until somebody reads my resume, till somebody looks it over and realizes the experience I have and had at the VA and what I'm bringing to the table now. I'm going to make them tell me I don't qualify as a physician. I don't qualify as a nurse. But there's 35 applications here and I would like them reviewed. With that, somebody called me back. And then when they talked to me on the phone, they heard my voice and they go, Maureen McDaniel. I'm like, yes, it's me. And then finally, people were interested. But until you take the drastic persistence and just keep pounding on the door, eventually it'll open. Let HR do their job. Don't disqualify yourself. Even if okay, yeah, you may not be qualified for a certain job, let them in HR, let them tell you that you're not qualified. Don't disqualify yourself. I'm not saying go apply for all these jobs that I did, but I'm saying, That one day, it took me 37 applications. That one day. Prior to that, I couldn't even count how many applications. But I didn't give up. I kept knocking on the door, and I went in there pushing my little baby stroller and, my stack of paperwork. You got to get creative. You got to do what you need to do, and you are your best advocate. Nobody can advocate as well for you as you can do it yourself. Everybody has experiences, and there's always things that you can bring to the table that only you can describe.
Yeah, that's really interesting because in some cases we also hear from vets and from our, from other internal agencies and departments as well. It's like you have to know somebody to in that department or agency to get the job there. But thank you so much for sharing that because now it really just shows that it's not always the case, and persistence definitely pays off in the end. So
Yeah, it is. I would like to say it is not the case. Um, yes, we do get referrals, oh, so and so works here. Okay, that's great, but that's not going to help you get a job. Knowing somebody and in HR, and I can definitely speak for VA Palo Alto, we do not refer reference letters. We don't want to know, and we're not interested in who somebody knows. That's not going to get you the job. It's you. Are you personally a good fit for the staff that you're going to be working with? Are you qualified for the job? Can you master the job within, 6 to 9 months? That's what we're looking for, not for who somebody knows.
yeah, thank you so much for that because it's like it's always great to hear it from HR, to say that it's can you actually do the job rather than just knowing the person. So thank you so much for that.
And then with that, those 37 applications that you turned in, do you know at this time what kind of employment opportunities y'all are hiring for?
We always have entry level. We are working with, I don't know if anybody is interested, we do have several medical support assistant positions, and the basic needs, the basic requirement also is the need, is medical terminology. And you don't have to have, you know, you don't have to go to school for medical terminology. It's not, it's a preferred. We would like you to have medical terminology, but you can do medical terminology at home on Google. You could pull up some of that and just start reading it and be familiar. And that'll qualify you for medical support assistant. And that's an entry level. And right now they're on special salary rate. So the pay is a little higher. You don't have to be, you don't have to have any additional schooling. It's a pretty good, walk in the door position. And then after a year, you could be promoted to the next level, which is an advanced medical support assistant. And then if you're interested, into a supervisory position. We have positions in logistics. We have positions in engineering. For the preference eligible veterans, we have positions in EMS. Kind of have, entry level positions everywhere.
Thank you for sharing that. And EMS, is that going to be the environmental services, I believe,
Yes,
right?
I'm
Or
sorry.
am I?
Yes, environmental management service. Yes, and
Okay,
that's
thank you.
mainly reserved for preference eligible veterans.
Okay, good to know. Thanks, Maureen.
And since we're in the conversation about veteran preferences, so this next question it goes towards, what kind of advice would you give our veterans when it comes to applying for the VA? Can you go into detail, like, what kind of resume writing is required and so forth?
Yes. So resume writing for VA and federal government in general is very different than on the outside. I know on the outside they say normally short and sweet, 1 to 2 pages. For VA and government, federal government in particular, we need to read what you're writing to us. We cannot assume and we can't fill in the gaps. So if there's something you want us to know, you need to put it in there. The federal resume, some people do as little as 5 pages. Some people do 12. Mine happens to be about 10 right now. And that's not just because I worked at the VA. It's you want to include everything you've done. You don't want to sell yourself short. You don't want to copy what is in the job postings. But what I would suggest is do your homework. If there's a certain job that you're interested in, you can Google it. You can go to the VA, vacareers.gov or usajobs.gov, and just put in, if you're looking for example, a medical support assistant, you can put that in there, medical support assistant. Doesn't matter if the job's here in Palo Alto or in Florida. It is going to get you reading. When you read the job postings, everybody writes their own. So us as staffing specialists, we write them. So if somebody in Florida is writing theirs, it's obviously going to be different than what I'm writing in Palo Alto. But the job tasks are there. And that's what you want to look at, the job duties, the job tasks. And you want to make sure that you include those in your resume. And don't leave anything out. If you think it's not necessary, go ahead and put it in there. Let us, read it. We will decide if you're qualified. Don't disqualify yourself by leaving something out. And if it goes beyond, 5, 6, 10 pages, it doesn't matter. We're happy to read it. We want to qualify folks. But if we don't see, and it's not, some people say, oh, it's certain trigger words. There are no trigger words. Each staffing specialist has to read everybody's resume. Yes, it's time consuming, but how else are we going to look through and find the best candidates to provide care to our veterans or even services? We have to do the reading, and that's how we find the best candidates. Regarding veterans preference, include everything. Include your DD 214 when you apply. Include your SF15 if you have 30% or more, or 10 points. Include that form. And if all the information is on the job postings, and if you're Schedule A, include your Schedule A letter. And if you're not sure what that is, look it up. Give me a call, send me an email, ask us. We're more than happy to explain everything in detail. Student preferences for level of preference categories, 30% disabled veterans float to the top. It really depends. But if you are somebody that has the ability, or you're thinking this did happen, but I'm not going to really go and follow through with claiming my veterans preference because my neighbor down the street is so far worse. Don't. Claim it for yourself. You are your best advocate. And let the doctors, let the VA benefits folks, decide what your eligibility is. Don't just yourself by not filing for it or not following up or not advocating for yourself. You are your best advocate. Do you have did I cover it all or did I miss anything?
No, that was great. And I'm actually going to piggyback off of what you were just saying there at the end. Can you tell us a little bit about what veteran preference is and how they are used and how they can connect to the hiring process?
Yes. So as I was mentioning, 30% disabled veterans. they have, and how it, I would say, follow through with advocating for yourself with VBA and going forward, fill out your VA 1010 to request your veterans benefits, to get your physical, to get it started. So we have our 30%, and when they apply for jobs, it gives them a non-competitive way in the door. So non-competitive is, I take their resume, I get their DD 214, their VA letter, benefits letter that says they're 30% or more. And then I kind of shop around for them and see, what kind of jobs they're interested in. And then my whole purpose of being a selective placement coordinator is I hear of the jobs that are coming out before they're posted. So what I do is I take my 30% veterans or my Schedule A, which are disabled individuals, and I kind of shop them around and I send them, because if I have a service that they're in a pinch and they need to fill a position now, they don't have time to post it and wait for the job to be posted, then I can just refer over this candidate and they can be selected right then. And then the onboarding process starts. So then so that's for our 30%, goes into what we call, it's a non-competitive across the board, and it's a provisional appointment. It would normally last 13 months. At the end of 13 months, they're non-competitively converted to a permanent employee. That's the provisional for 30% veterans. Then we have our VEOA appointments, which are for recent released or transitioned out of the military within 3 years. And then we have our VRA, which is a training program. And again, it's a 2-year program. The 30% veterans are a 13-month program. VRA is a 2-year program. And then our Schedule A for disabled individuals is also a 2-year program. At the end of the 2 years, those individuals are non-competitively converted to a permanent position. So it's basically a trial period for 2 years. And then you're non-competitively converted. Now, anybody that has, a documented disability, whether it is 5% or 100%, you are a disabled individual. That qualifies you for Schedule A, a Schedule A appointment. So you would submit those same documents, your VA letter that says, we don't want to know what your disability is because of HIPAA laws. We just want to know what percentage is, and that you have documented. And then your resume, and you're good to go. But you need to set those documents or time for the position. Different questions that come up, and these are screen out the 30% CP, CPS. Then it'll go into a 5-point, which is TP. That'll give you 5-point preference. And then it'll ask you if you have a disability. And not disability by the physical disability, but it'll ask you what percentage is your disability. And once you select that, and then it'll ask you, are you also a Schedule A applicant? You say yes. If someone is telling you, yes, you have this disability, or even your private doctor is telling you, yes, you have this disability, then you select, yes, I'm applying as a Schedule A applicant, and then you submit those documents. It's not, you want to make sure that you do not rule yourself out. And if you're in the process of applying and you're not sure what to click, don't click anything. Just stop, call HR's front desk, They will transfer you to any one of us. I believe there's about 18 of us right now throughout United States. We all kind of work from different spots. And we can talk you through it. But the best thing is to, if you know you have a documented disability, make sure you check it when you apply, because it is all tied into the hiring process. And if you have, you're not satisfied with the disability rating that you have, call VA Oakland Benefits and start the process again. You are your own best advocate.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're actually mentioning advocating for yourself as a job seeker, as a veteran, right, who's looking for work. It's just something that definitely I know I've recommended quite a bit to veterans whenever they're looking for work, and for those of you that assist veterans in their searches for work. I know many of you all on the call who do actually do that, but definitely encourage you to encourage them to do that, because I mean, they have to show that they want the job, right? They need to advocate for themselves and really just put in some of that legwork.
Yeah, and if you're not sure, call and ask. We are all more than happy to answer questions, provide guidance. We'll make appointments. If you're comfortable coming in the office, that's fine too. We'll do whatever needs to be done to assist you in applying for these jobs.
I will say that there is a difference there with you as an HR professional saying that it's okay for job seekers to reach out to you, which I think is great. So if you guys are all listening, please make note of that. Many times when we're looking at job announcements, right, we see those numbers at the very bottom of those job announcements saying like, hey, this is the person that you can reach out to. Reach out to them.
Take advantage.
I mean, it doesn't hurt.
Right, take advantage.
Okay. Okay, so, and then I'll go ahead and move on to my next question, which is actually a two-parter. I know that you guys do background investigations. As far as those go, what kind of background investigations are performed during the hiring process with VA Palo Alto?
Okay, so the basic background investigation is what we call a NACI. And you come in, you get fingerprinted. Fingerprints, normally the turnaround time is about 48 hours. So within 48 hours, we'll have a results of your fingerprints, and we can move forward with starting at the same time, we would move forward with starting your background investigation, which is called EQIP. And what EQIP is, it's everything that you have done in the last 10 years, where you've lived. We want to see complete addresses. Everything that is on your resume should mirror into your background investigation, and vice versa. Where you've lived, associates, friends, employers. What we're really looking at is the last 10 years. And if you did something before 10 years, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It is not a deal breaker. It's not like that. If you have issues in your background within 10 years, that's fine. That is not a deal breaker either. What they are looking for is patterns. For example, and we do hire individuals with issues, right? It's not like that. We're all human. The thing that we're looking at is the position you're going into. Are you going to succeed? For example, we are not going to place somebody that has substance issues in the past. We're not going to put them in pharmacy, because you know what? That is just setting them up to fail. We're not going to do it. If we have somebody with a history of theft, because of substance abuse, okay, again, we're all human, but we're not going to put that person in the warehouse where they're exposed to things, because again, our pharmaceuticals do come through our warehouse at one point or another before they get to the pharmacy. Somebody has to deliver those. So we're not going to set somebody up to fail. We're going to put you in a position that you're qualified for and that you will excel at, because if you excel, the VA excels, right? You do better in your job, you're going to like it. You're going to want to work for us for 20, 25 years, 30 until you retire. You excel, we excel. Happy employees make happy patients. That's our goal. I know it sounds really quirky to say, but it's the truth. We don't want to be hiring people, you know, over and over into these positions. You know, we want to get you in the door. We want you to succeed. We want you to move up within the VA. Yes, we will have to, hire behind you, but we're not hiring behind you because you failed. We're hiring behind you because you succeeded and you've excelled and you've moved yourself up. In the VA and in the government in particular, you set your own destiny. You only have to remain in a position 1 year before you are eligible for promotion into the next grade. So if you come in the door at a GS5, 1 year you're a GS6. Following year, you're a GS7. Then after 7, you jump to a 9. After 1 year at a GS7, you jump to a GS9. 1 year at a 9, you jump to the 11. 1 year after that, you go to the 12. For the 13, you become a service chief at the 14, and then you become our associate director or our assistant director at the 15. So it's endless. You can set your own destiny. And there's jobs within the VA. You don't have to have, you don't have to have positive education. You don't have to have a bachelor's to get in the door. You don't have to have a master's. Yes, if you're going to work with us and you want to be a clinical psychologist, you better have your PhD in clinical psychology, your doctorate. MDs, nurses, same thing. But for a regular technician job or HR, program analyst, program manager, you don't need any positive education. All you need is the experience and the willingness to learn and the willingness to do it. That's all it takes.
Awesome. Thanks, Maureen. And I said this was a two-parter, so just going back to the background investigation, how does the background investigation relate to the security clearance and position sensitivity, as well as risk as detailed in the usajobs.gov job posting?
Okay, so we're looking at, with background investigations, we're looking to see if there's a pattern. If there's a pattern in your history where, every 18 months, there's a little blip and something happens, then if you're a veteran, we would probably suggest, hey, we kind of see this pattern. You may not be a good fit for a position now, but you will. So we would refer you on. It just really depends. But like I said, it's not that we don't hire people with issues. We do. We are looking from today back 10 years. And if you have something in your history, claim it. There's a OF 306. It's a Declaration of Federal Employment. And on that form, if you have any issue that you might think, now we're not talking speeding tickets or anything like that. If you owe, for example, if you owe back taxes, whether they're federal or state, all you have to do is claim it on the form, write it down. All you're doing is acknowledging it. If you've been, incarcerated, we're all human. We all have something. Write it down. Claim it, write it down. And if, you were incarcerated or you had to do community service, whatever the situation is, it's not a deal breaker. But you do have to do your homework up front. You will need to go to the courthouse. You will need to submit copies of documents when they are asked for from our security section. And it is a need to know basis. So if I'm hiring somebody and I'm the hiring specialist, right? I am the person that's processing them in. If there's something that comes up on their background for their fingerprint results, right? I'm not going to know about it. It is between HR security and the individual who we're hiring. Those two will work together on resolving the issue. Nobody else knows. It is a need to know basis, and nobody else needs to know. Your service will never know. Your supervisors that you're going into, they will never know. It is very secure between the HR specialist in security that you are working with and the individual that we're trying to get cleared. So whatever you can do up front, if you need to go to the courthouse or you need to go wherever to obtain documents, that's the most we're going to ask from you, is to supply documents to support what we see on a background investigation. Yes, there are times, I will say that, there are times that, we just can't do it. It's just not a good fit. I will say one of those examples is, you know, somebody came and applied for a job, and I happen to be the specialist, and they had something that was not appealing on their background, something with a minor. Well, we have a child care facility on Palo Alto grounds. I could not hire this individual. Now, I didn't have this at the time. It was between security and the individual, and all I was told is that I cannot move forward with this appointment. And I said, and I said, we need to rescind this offer. And he says, and they knew up front why. They had had something, on their record that was with a minor. And because of, Megan's Law, and we just could not hire him to work at Palo Alto because of the child care center. And if it wasn't for him coming forward and telling me that, yes, I have this, I knew it was going to be an issue, but I thought maybe, I could kind of squeeze by. Without him telling me, I have no idea. There, other than um, and we're not like that. That's not how the VA runs, and that's not how our security department runs. The agent 10 years, and they're looking, if you have issue and it looks like it's, continuing around the same time every year, that's a pattern. That might be something where there might be something that's a trigger that might need to be further investigated, or, they might need to be referred somewhere. And we can also help with that. We can help get you resources if you're a veteran. We can help say, well, these are a couple phone numbers, and, if you like to call them, they'll be willing to help. But other than that, we're not in a need to know at any point. It is strictly the 10 years if they see a pattern. Within the pattern, there's also, like I mentioned, DUIs, theft, substance abuse. There's a rating scale. So just because it happened doesn't mean that that's an actual mark against you. There's a rating scale. Was it violent? Was it not violent? What the terms or situation around it? What was the judicial process? There's a point scale, and they might give you a point for it, but you might get 1 point versus 5 points. So it's never where you should be afraid to claim what's on your background, because if we know it up front, we can work with it. Not, and I don't say we as in staffing, but we as in HR security. They can work with it. The more upfront you are in claiming that you have something on your background that might come up in your fingerprints, because that's when we run fingerprints, that's going to show us pretty much what your background is and if you have anything. Then we go to the background investigation, which is the EQUIP that you have submitted as an applicant, and we compare the two. Well, did you claim this or did you not? It's favorably looked upon if you claim it. If not, we kind of think, like anybody else, did they just forget about it, which is a common occurrence? Did they not think it mattered? That's a common occurrence. Or were they hiding it? So the more upfront and interactive you are regarding your background investigation, the better off you're going to be. And like I said, we don't, discount anybody for just any reason. It would have to be something that is pretty severe for us, the VA security, to say, we really can't move forward. So don't, like I said in the application process, don't rule yourself out. Apply, let us, the VA HR, let us do our job. Let us help you get to where you need to be. Yes, if by chance we would ever have to rescind an offer, I am the one that calls and, works with the individual on that. I don't know the reason I'm calling. All I know is that I have to rescind the offer. They don't tell me why. But if somebody says, they explain to me and I said, okay, well, maybe there's something else we can do here. It's not always a dead end no. And just because somebody may not be a fit right now for the position that they're applying to, doesn't mean that their background wouldn't clear them for another position. So it may not be a good fit in the warehouse or logistics, but that doesn't mean that you can't come over in HR, or you can't work in another clinic or work in an administrative job. It just means that background investigation is not a good fit right now. Hopefully that helps.
No, it definitely does. And then just again, just you letting us know that you, as an HR professional within the HR department over at VA Palo Alto, that you guys really do take a look at what's on the resume and what it is that the applicant is providing you as far as their application goes, instead of just, maybe just discounting them straight off the bat. It just makes me feel better about letting veterans know that, hey, this is a place that you can apply to and that you're very likely to get a position at, especially if you have the experience and the skill set, right, that they need. Your background, maybe you getting in trouble, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, isn't going to be something that's going to hinder you from being able to get an application or to get your application looked at or to get a job. And hopefully that makes it to where some of the veterans that y'all are working with will feel encouraged to apply over at, the Modesto VA clinic, Stockton VA clinic, or some of the clinics out in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and it doesn't even just solely go back to, past 10 years. If there's things that have recently happened, it's not a deal breaker. That's the main thing I want to get across. It's not a deal breaker. And we are all available, to assist in any ways that we can. The main thing is when you apply for a government job, not just VA, but government-wide, you will be completing a declaration of federal employment. When you complete that, be very truthful, claim it, write it down. You can explain, and if there's not enough page, attach a separate sheet, claim it. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. There's nothing, a lot of times people think, oh, but I have this and I have that. Okay, but sometimes you learn from those experiences and that changes people. There may be something else that you're bringing to the table just from those situations. that have changed you or impacted your life that you can help somebody else by working at the VA, and you can transition what you've learned and what you went through to help forward it on to somebody else. So it's not a deal breaker. That's the main thing. It is not a deal breaker.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Neoni. Thanks again, Maureen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. So, and one question that I had was, how does, and you kind of touched base on this just a little bit, um, which was how does one transfer, from one agency to another? Because I kind of did that within the VA system. I started out at Rhode Island and then I transferred out here. So I thought that was pretty easy, but maybe, this is one of the questions that we always run into as well, is the transferability. And I know you touched base on this just a little bit. So again, to kind of reiterate the question, like how does one transfer from one agency to another within the federal system?
Okay, so that's very simple, very straightforward. Once you are in the federal government, again, you set your destiny. You can go anywhere. Once your foot is in the door, you have to stay. I shouldn't say you have to. The rule of thumb is that you stay in your position for 90 days. Once you're in it for 90 days, you can go anywhere you want. You can apply for jobs, if you wanted to go back across the country, you could apply for that job. What happens? You have your interview, you're selected, the HR specialist, in whether it's DOD or VA, whichever position that you were selected for, they would reach out, their HR office reaches out to ours. We provide them a copy of your background investigation. We provide what we call our SF-75 information, and that is basically your whole overlay of your HR record. It's going to tell them what health insurance you have, what retirement system you have, if you have a loan through your TSP plan, which is the thrift savings. That's an additional optional retirement program we have. It's going to tell the new agency everything about you. And then once they're done processing you through as a new employee, they will contact us again and they'll say, we want Noni to start, on August 15th. Okay. If you can get back there and you got your housing all situated, fine. That date works for us. It's very, very simple. Now, within the federal government, if you can visualize a great big T, right? Just the straight line down and across to make a T. So on one side, we have our competitive service. And on the other side, we have our accepted service. So within the competitive service on the left, this is everybody that works on the administrative side of the house. So these are our engineering folks, our admin folks, our logistics folks. On the other side of the T, or the other column on the right side, we have all of our healthcare providers, our nurses, our doctors, audiologists, just people that provide health care. On the left side is what we call our competitive service. For competitive service, everybody in the government has to serve 3 years to become career. Once you are career, you can leave the VA or federal government in general, and you can come back with hiring preference. I use that as an example of myself. I worked here for 13 years. I resigned, I left, had my own business, and then I came back. And I came back with a hiring preference because I was a career individual. I served those 3 years. So that's the main, when we're saying how to transfer, You're able to transfer after 90 days, but to be a solid career individual, you really want to be 3 years because that is what locks you in. If you transfer from Palo Alto and you want to go to, Texas, you can do that at any time, but you're kind of starting all over. So you're going to go at the same grade. If you're only in your position 90 days, you're going to go at the same grade that you are. Now, if you have been in your position for a year, remember, you're eligible for a promotion. The difference in the once you are career, you have reinstatement rights. You have appeal rights. You are locked in. You are a permanent position. You are a permanent employee. If you have not completed those 3 years, you're going into another position, which is totally fine. It just means that you don't have the security that you will have as a permanent employee. That's the difference. You want to make sure that wherever you are, and you can move to Texas after 90 days, right? Hey, something happened, emergency at home, you need to go back. No problem. You can do that, but you're going to be in the same position. So you're still building on those 3 years. So the main thing is whatever position you choose, you are your own, you can set your own destiny, you can set your own path. What I suggest is anybody coming in the door, keep in mind, you really want to make that 3-year mark. Now, you do not have to stay in the same position while you make that 3-year mark. After 1 year, you can be promoted. After another year, you can be promoted again. And that's fine. You just want to make sure that you gain the 3 years. I'll use as an example, one of my kids, I have two fabulous kids, and they're both disabled. My daughter has a learning disability, and my son had facial reconstruction surgery. My son works in the warehouse at the VA, and he wants to go to Honolulu. He wants to transfer there. And I said, that's fine. I said, you can do that. I said, but remember, to be secure, you have to have your 3 years in. That is going to lock you in as a permanent VA employee. So I asked him, what do you think? And I said, you can get over there, but you're not going to be locked in. So you're going to be, first of all, somebody coming from the mainland going to the islands. I said, that's going to be a change, even though he's Hawaiian. I said, that's going to be a change. You're in the staff eyes, you're going to be starting new. I said, so there's a lot of things that you need to think out. Do you want to get your 3 years here and transfer in, and you're no longer on probation? You don't have to do another probation. You only serve 1 year probation within the federal government. That's it, 1 year. Now you might be on a 2-year, whether it's a Schedule A or a 13-month appointment, but those, you only do 1 year as probation. The rest of it is just time counting towards your career appointment. So it's not that you can't do it. You can. I just suggest, if you're going to make a change, there's always things that come up and people need to leave. I totally understand it. It's not a big deal. It's just keep in mind, you want to remain within the government for your 3 years. Where you do it doesn't matter. But the mom in me, I always tell my people, get your 3 years in, at least. Make sure you're secured for 3 years. And then that way, if you want to quit and you want to come back later, when your kids are grown and, there's nobody else left at home and you want to come back to work, come back to work. You have hiring preference. So hopefully that helps. If I didn't answer it, please let me know.
It sounds so much just like how it was in the military when it comes to like transferring from one post to another. And in some cases, it's like you have to re-enlist to get transferred to another post. But it sounds very, very close to it. Thank you so much for that. And I
No,
didn't know some of the stuff that you just said. That's
yeah,
pretty
no
pretty cool.
re-enlisting. You do not have to re-enlist. Come and stay at the VA. No enlistment required.
Yeah, that's the cool thing. And then I think like the best part about it too is like, once you get into the federal system and if you want to go somewhere else where it's cheaper, that's why not, right? Thank you so much for that. And I'll turn it over to Amelia.
Okay, so with that, Maureen, can you tell us a little bit about what the interviewing process is like?
Yes. So interviews nowadays are performance based. So, um, you know, dress for success, one thing. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You know, a lot of the interviews nowadays are over a phone call. They're not necessarily video. Some are. Um, you are your best advocate. So, if you're scheduled for an interview time, make yourself available half hour before to half hour after. And that doesn't mean that if you're at work, you have to stop working. It just means have your cell phone by you, so that you hear the phone ring. You don't want to miss their call. Um, if you're doing an in-person interview, you know, dress for success. I'm not saying go buy a suit, but borrow a shirt from somebody like my son had to do. I'm like, yeah, you don't have any nice shirts? No, mom. I said, well, you got enough friends. Go buy her one. Um, so it's just you do what you can. You are your best advocate. The performance-based interviews, the first question they're always going to ask is, okay, well, tell us something about you. The interview panel will start by introducing themselves. Sometimes it's, people, it might be up as many as 5, but they will always start with introducing themselves and speaking a little bit about what they do at the VA. And then they're going to ask you, you know, what do you want us to know about yourself? Um, I think it's a good idea to write something down ahead of time so that you know you're going to be nervous. And even those of us that don't have a problem speaking in public or we're not nervous or you still get a little bit of the jitters. So write a few things down. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I prepared a statement. Do you mind if I read it? Oh, they're going to say, oh, perfect. That's fine. Or you might just want to write down a few little things that are going to trigger your memory to start talking about yourself. Not many of us really know how to sell ourselves. I know I don't. I just know how to talk about what I do at the VA because I enjoy it. I know how to talk about, what I do. Talking about me personally, not so good at it. Um, but just advocate for yourself. Performance based interviews are what have you done in your past that is going to provide you with the elements, um, the opportunities, the personal growth. What are you bringing to the table that you have that nobody else has? They're going to ask you, have you had a situation that was uncomfortable or that was confrontational? How did you handle that? Well, we kind of all have those situations. It may not be in a work setting. It could be at the grocery store. What this dude just, what is he thinking? You can't talk to me like that. There's all kinds of situations in everyday life that you can reflect on. So they're going to say, okay, well, what happened? How did you, how did you de-escalate this? Or how did you feel when you were in this situation? And then you just talk about it. I would not say that, oh, I wrote, this guy cut me off and I was just, no, you want to talk about things of how you disescalated, a confrontation so that it just went away. How maybe you intervened on something you saw going on, in your neighborhood, or how you just kind of, made somebody feel important and heard without um, it getting out of hand. How did you just let the person be heard and feel that they were heard and acknowledge, what you heard them speaking of, or how you acknowledged how they feel or how they felt. Those are the things that the interview panel wants to hear. They want to hear how you can be in a tough situation and remain cool, remain calm, remain, everybody has something, especially in the workforce, not only with our patients that we serve, but with our staff. Everybody has a personal life, and that personal life does not stop when they enter the VA doors. So somebody is always bringing something. Some are positive, some are negative, and sometimes folks have a bad day. But we want to know, and we want to hear it from you, the selectee, that I've been in these situations. It's not a problem. I can handle this. I know how to control myself and to not take things personally and to listen to the other individual. Hear them, make them feel heard, and how that made you feel. That's what they want to hear. They want to hear that, you're not a confrontational person. You're not looking to escalate things. We want to hire at the VA and government wide. We want to hire the best folks to serve our patients. And with that being, we want to hear you tell us that, an uncomfortable situation is okay, that I can handle that. It may not be a daily thing, it may not be something big, but we also want folks to be aware of their own surroundings, and that what we bring to the table and what we bring into the workforce area as a person, and that we can handle it when somebody forgets to check their stuff at the door. We can handle it. We can listen, we can intervene, and we can de-escalate. Another one of the questions that they'll lead into on performance-based interview questioning is, what have you contributed? What have you contributed, whether it's to society or your current position or your previous position? What have you contributed that you can own? And so, with performance-based interview questions, they're basically all the same. Tell us about you, and then what was an awkward situation? How did you feel? How did you handle it? And then the next one is going to be, what did you own? What did you do that you can own in an organization, whether it was a work, a volunteer, a community thing, something in your church? What did you develop? What can you own? What did you do? Some people say, I came up with a process to, shorten the time of in processing, something at your church, or I did something on Excel that, I'm really proud of. I helped somebody develop something, whether it was a poster or, it doesn't have to be anything fabulous. It's just something that you can own, that made you feel good, and that can demonstrate that you are a self-thinker and that you can take direction and run with a project. And the project doesn't mean that it's big. It just means, hey, if your supervisor says, I need you to do A, B, and C, that you can take A, B, and C and run with them without too much oversight. So performance-based interviews are really a chance to put the ball in your own court. And the questions, like I said, they will remain the same. They're the same questions. It's just, how do you personally answer them? How do you identify with what the overall goal is of the question? Because, you know, the people interviewing you, they're trying to get a feel for your personality as well as your qualifications. We can all read what's on your resume, but this is your time to stand up and say, you know, I can do this, or I haven't done anything in that, you know, that I can think of, but I guarantee I am willing to do it and I can excel. You know, I might need a little bit of oversight in the beginning, but within a reasonable amount of time, I can excel at this. I really feel this is a good fit for me. It's your time to shine. And like I said, the interview questions, performance interview, they're all the same questions. Tell us about you. What was an uncomfortable situation? What can you provide, or what do you own that you've done? What did you create? What were you part of that you can own, that you contributed? That's basically it. And then the closing question is always going to say, what additional do you want us to know about you? And that is your time, again, to shine. You can tell them, you know, I'm really looking up to having this opportunity. I'm really excited. I know I haven't been selected yet, but I'm really excited to even get to this point to have an interview. I would really like to know from you guys, you know, you're addressing the panel. I would really like to know from you folks, you know, I haven't interviewed very much in the past. What can you provide me that I can take forward if I'm not selected? What can you give me of just a quick impression? What kind of feedback can you give me that's going to help me grow into my next opportunity? You know, put it back. Let them tell you what they want to hear, right? They might say, well, maybe in your next interview, you might want to, you know, address, you know, more about the awkward situation. Well, you know what? They just opened the door for you to address it again because you asked them for their input and now it's on you to finish, right? Your interview's not done until they say, okay, we're done. You've opened it. You've asked them for their input about how your interview went. They gave you feedback. Now it's your turn to give them feedback. You want to hear more about my awkward situation? Let me tell you now. And you start speaking again, right? You are your best advocate. You are the one that can sell yourself. Nobody else can do it for you. And interview-based questions, they're all about you, how you are going to sell yourself, because you know what they're looking for. The employer is always looking, are you going to be a good fit? Are you somebody that's dependable? Are you a hothead? No. I can de-escalate anything, right? I can talk anybody off the cliff. We can de-escalate. I'm a calm person. I got this. It's very you focused. I don't know what else to say other than be prepared. You know what the questions are now. Write them down and just, you know, and it's not that you're preparing for a specific interview. You're preparing yourself for an interview. All interviews that are on performance-based, which is all of federal government, we all do the same questions. It might be a different individual asking them the same questions. And you're just preparing yourself, you're writing it down, you're taking the time to focus on you. Write down how you might react. And when and do it a couple more times while you're applying for jobs. Write down little things on the side. Oh, well, you know what? I did this in my past, and this would be really good to hit on in an interview. Something to bring up. Write it down. Do your homework up front. You are your best advocate. And when they ask you, talk about you, talk about you. Talk about what your interests are. At the ending closing of the interview, you can prepare a closing statement and say in your closing statement why you would be a good fit for this position, why they should select you over, B or C. Sell yourself and be personal about it. Hopefully that helps.
That was definitely like a very that it's very detailed, and because from my own experience, I definitely didn't do what you had said, and I definitely would have been able to interview a lot better if I had done that. But to follow up with that, then I mean, from applying for a position to hired, what is the typical time frame for for applying for a job?
For like I say, a Title V, the administrative side of the house, we try to do 30 days. Right now, we are running at about 60 days. So anywhere between 6 weeks to 8 weeks to get your clearance, to get your background finished, to get your TB test or a physical if you need a physical, which the VA provides. We do a one-stop in Mountain View. You would come, get fingerprinted, have your physical, everything in one stop. Once we pull everything together, yes, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks. And then we also realize that once we have you cleared, if you're currently employed, you're still going to want to give notice, right? You're not going to drop and just say, hey, I'm out of here. You want to save those bridges that you've built. So you want to give notice. Sometimes people give 2 weeks, sometimes people give a month. That's fine. We realize that. We build that into our expectation of when somebody physically reports for duty. We're not going to expect anybody to report, the next week. If you're unemployed and you want to report as soon as possible, yahoo, we're not going to deny it. We'll take you at any time. But it's not a difficult situation if somebody wants to give notice where they are. But on average, I would say 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, and then that's actually one of the questions that we had in the chat box. So hopefully that question was answered, but I'll go into detail with the rest of the questions as well towards the end. But I'll go ahead and leave it over to Amelia. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. And that sounds about right. That's about how long it took when I was actually coming on board with Palo Alto. It took about probably 8 weeks. So right on schedule. Okay. And then what is the best way to follow up with the vacancy?
Simple. Every vacancy announcement has a phone number and a name. Call, call, call. I cannot stress it enough that you are your best advocate. If you're not sure or you haven't heard anything, there are 4 point of contacts that every applicant should be notified. You'll get an automatic email when you apply for a position on USA Jobs. You'll get an automatic message that says we've received your application and you are tentatively eligible for the position. That's an automatic, we received your application. The next communication, everybody, and I say should, is because we as HR specialists, this is what we do. This is part of our standard work. You will get an email saying that you are either eligible for the position or not eligible. And if you are deemed not eligible, there will be a code on there with a description telling you why you're not eligible. And it could be a simple fact that the position you're applying for is only open to VA Palo Alto employees. That might be the reason. Now, with that said, disabled individuals, so I'm talking Schedule A or 30% individuals, by law, you are eligible to apply to those postings. So if you are rated ineligible, you can call HR because it means there's an error. You can call HR and say, hey, I'm a 30% disabled veteran, or I'm a disabled individual and I was rated ineligible. Can I talk to somebody about this? And then you give them the vacancy number and they'll transfer you to a specialist that can help you. A lot of times mistakes are made, not on purpose. It's just, it was overlooked. So call up and ask. Another point of contact is after you've been found eligible, you will be sent another email saying that you were qualified. And so when you get the email saying you are eligible and then another one saying you're qualified, they normally come pretty quick within, if not a few minutes, then within a day or two of each other. And what that's telling you is that the HR specialist has looked at your paperwork. They have read your resume. They have looked to make your application package is complete. You've included your DD-214 if you're a veteran. You've included your disability letter if you have one. You've included your SF-15, which is the declaration that you have have vet preference. That you've included all of that. And then the fourth point of contact is going to be whether you were selected. So let me go through it again. The first one is going to be that they received your application. The second is you're eligible. And then the third is going to be qualified and referred. I forgot to talk about referred. The third point of contact that you will receive in email is you're qualified and you have been referred. And what that means is that you were put on a list, what we call a cert. You were put on a list of eligible candidates, eligible qualified candidates. And when I am talking about the list, we all refer to it as a cert. There are different certs. So we might have one position, but we're going to have a cert that has disabled individuals on it, right? That have a Schedule A, or they're a 30% or 10% disabled, whatever their disability rating is for the veteran. We're going to have people that are from the outside that are disabled with a Schedule A letter. That's all on one list. Then we're going to have our veterans list, and it's going to be all of our veterans. Doesn't matter if they're no preference or if they have 30%, they're going to be on that list. Now, if you're a 30% veteran and you applied for this, you're now on the Schedule A list because you're a disabled individual. You're also on the list for veterans. So the selecting official is now seeing your resume package twice, not just once, twice, because you're on both lists. Then we have our internal to VA Palo Alto list and our internal to VA, big VA, anybody from any other VA agency that wants to apply for this job. So to recap, if you are a current VA employee and you have a disability rating, you are now on the Schedule A list, you're on the veterans list, and you're also on the internal list for VA employees. The selecting official has now seen your resume package 3 times. And then the last category is, let me think, Schedule A, 30%, internal, is our external applicants. And when I say external, they're still government employees, because we can go to status, right? Status is anybody that has 3 years in, anybody that's a veteran, anybody that's disabled, or is already an employee. Those are status. And so when on our external list, that is going to be our other government entities. For example, VA Canteen. They are part of the VA, but they're not part of big VA. They are their own separate entity. And we have what we call an interchange agreement between VA Canteen and big VA. So we can hire those individuals and they're going to go on their own list of others. And there'll be people from, for example, DOD. They'll be on the others list. So it really just depends on what you're bringing to the table. If you're on one list or you're on all the lists, it just really depends on your personal situation. And then the last notice they would receive is if you're selected or not selected.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and skip the next question because you kind of touched base on it a little bit, which was the status and also Schedule A. So we'll go into the next one, which is what is the hiring Is there a difference between the hiring process for internship as well as the general individuals that are applying for the job?
I'm sorry, my computer just blinked. Can you say it again?
Sure. So is there a different hiring process for internship as opposed to the general hiring process?
No, it is the same hiring process. The only difference with an internship is you will not, and it depends on how long your internship is for. You will not pay into the retirement. That's the only difference with an internship. You can still non-competitively be converted to a permanent employee when you're done with your internship. And the internship we have, it's an internship, but it's a little bit different. It's pathways. So I'll quickly touch base on that. What pathways is a hiring authority and a process that we have for anybody that is in school. And it doesn't mean that you can go to school for your bachelor's, you can be going for your AA, or you could be going for a certificate program. And if the certificate program, when you graduate with your certificate, you are now eligible to be non-competitively converted to a permanent position. So it doesn't mean you have to serve, 4 years to get your bachelor's or 6 years to do your master's. If you're going for a certificate program and you have applied for a job as a Pathways student, the only thing that is required for Pathways is that you are a student, you are currently enrolled, and you are carrying at least half a load. You don't have to be going to school full time. You have to be going half, so 50% load, have to be enrolled, and whichever program you are enrolled into, whether it is a degree program or a certificate program, you're still eligible for the Pathways. And then once you graduate and you have that certificate or that degree, you're non-competitively converted to a permanent position. And while you're in the Pathways, you've already completed your probationary period, because all that time that you served working as a student counts towards your probationary period. So you could become a permanent employee and you don't even have a probationary period. You've already done it when you worked as a student. So there's a lot of different, when we talk about, trainees or fellowship or something like that, it really just depends on what you're going to school for and what the program is in and what type of fellowship we have to offer.
So it sounds like really I mean, I can't say this a simple way, but an effective way of getting into the federal system is, if while you're in school, pursue internship, right? Because it sounds like at the end, you've already covered probation, you've already covered eligibility. But yeah, thank you so much for that. Um,
And that's a good way that non-veterans can get in. Because in the hiring process, there is a pecking order. Veterans will always be selected first. But if you're coming in as a trainee, once you've completed your certificate, you're non-competitively conferred. And one of the great things that happens after the Pathways program is if somebody is going to school, for example, nursing, right? And they have their LVN license, but they're still interested in going to school for the RN. The VA has programs where if you're a full-time employee, you came in through the Pathways program, and now you've been converted to permanent, and you're a full-time employee, and you've been full-time for 1 year, you can apply for a program where the VA will send you to nursing school and also pay you your annual wage while you go to nursing school. So there's a lot of things that the VA has to provide, a lot.
That's pretty cool. Once in a while, we'll end up seeing pathways on usajobs.gov. I didn't know that's what that was. That's pretty cool. Cool. I'll leave it up to you, Amelia. Thank you so much, Irene, for that answer.
No problem.
Okay. And then with that, we're actually going to go ahead and move into our question and answer portion for you all who are here with us. I'm going to go ahead and read off a couple of the questions out of the chat box first. Let's see. And then we have a question from Charles Tate, and he's asking, what is the best number for a candidate to call? And I'm thinking that he's meaning for positions with VA Palo Alto.
650-694-6000. That is our front desk. It comes directly to HR. And if you press 1, it gets you directly to our receptionist at the front desk. We have somebody there full-time, 8 to 4:30. And then on the announcements as well, we'll also have an additional phone number if you happen to be applying to a job.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. And then we'll go ahead and go with the next.
There's my contact. You can call me anytime.
And then let's see the next question that we have. So we have somebody who has a few clients who have submitted applications back in April and May, and their application is still being processed. Will they receive a denial or possible interview for the next step?
They should, but they should also be calling us. If you don't hear back, again, you are your best advocate. Call us, ask us what's going on. I haven't heard back. Sometimes what happens is they apply and it's an open continuous posting. And so what that means is it's open until the position is full. Well, the position might be full, but we have other people that we know are leaving. So if we have somebody who's transferring to another agency or getting promoted and going to another service or just into another position in general, we might know that that's happening, but it hasn't happened yet. So they're holding a bunch of resumes until that happens. They don't want to close it because then they've shut out their applicant pool. But if they leave it open, they're still getting applicants that they can review. As long as the job posting is up, the resumes are good until the job posting, it's 90 days after the job closes is when the resume pool expires. So as long as they're in there and that posting is up, they are still active and they will remain active until 90 days after the announcement has closed. So there's nothing preventing them from calling and asking for a status, checking in, And then again, if they don't hear in a couple weeks, call again. That's our job. We want to hear from people. We want to be able to say, we want to hear that you're interested in the position, and that you want to know a status.
Thanks, Maureen. And then we also had another question, which I believe was answered already, but how long is the estimated response time to receive an application update? And they should be receiving an email basically right when they first submit their application, right? Just saying that it was received?
Right. They will receive an automated message. It is not that anybody has looked at their paperwork. It's just the computer saying, okay, we've received your packet. That's it. If they have applied and they don't hear back within 2 to 3 weeks, I would suggest they call and ask. There's nothing wrong with checking in. It might be just a simple thing of, hey, you know what? The staffer's answering the phone. I'm working on it. I had some other things come up. I'm so sorry. I'm running late. But at least the staffer knows. They're hearing your name. They're knowing you're interested in the position, and then that stays in their mind. I'm not saying that you're going to be selected because of that, because we don't do the selections, the actual service does. But what it is, it's just letting us know that, you're already having a good rapport with this person. We want to hear from folks. We want to know that you're excited about the opportunity, and it's not that we tell that to a service or anything, but when you advocate for yourself, you're kind of already starting on the right foot, and you're going to continue with that same behavior. If somebody knows it's okay to call, and then they're comfortable calling, they're going to call again. And then it proves they are advocating for themselves.
Thanks, Maureen. And then one more question out of the chat box. Does the interview panel review resumes prior to the interviews, or are they solely weighted on what is stated at the time of the interview?
Both. The interview panel, I want to say normally, now this happens at the service level. HR really isn't involved. But what the service normally does is anybody on the interview panel, they will receive a copy of the resume of the person they're interviewing. They will get a copy of the performance-based interview questions, which are always the same. Sometimes the person on the panel, it could be 1, it could be 4 or 5. Sometimes they read the resume ahead of time. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just want to be present in the moment. And it's up to each individual person as to how they interact. I myself, I like to read it ahead of time so that I'm familiar and I can ask questions, or, even though it's a performance-based interview, I might be able to say, hey, I see that you worked at, wherever, Safeway, wherever, did you ever come across anything that was really awkward? And then that kind of gets in that question, right? That's just myself. Now, other people might just say, stick to the straight interview question and just read it. Has there ever been a time that, you felt uncomfortable, or that was, not the perfect interaction with somebody? It just really depends on the person that's on the panel, the receiving, the people that are on the panel. And then what they do, they have the interview questions. They will write down what their answers, what the interviewee has to say. So if the person being interviewed is describing an awkward situation, or they're talking about something that they can own, that they brought to the table, or that they will bring to the VA, then the person that's asking the question, they're going to jot down your answers. And then when the interview is over, and again, this is the person's time to say in the interview, tell us a little bit about yourself, right? Say, do you have any questions for us? Well, I do. For future reference, could you give me any feedback on this particular interview, right? You're getting their feedback and then you're addressing their feedback. So by the time the interview is done, it's almost like you had 2 times to answer their questions, right? You answered the original question, and then when they gave you your feedback on your interview, you're kind of addressing it again because you want to answer those again. So when the interview concludes and the performance-based interview questions, they each have a piece of paper. They have been writing it down, their answers. Once the person being interviewed has left the room, those folks will chat amongst themselves and they will score their interview pages on their own basis. They don't talk as a group as far as, oh, we should give him all 5s or we should give her all 3s. They don't do that. They'll talk amongst themselves and they'll say, well, I was really impressed on this person's answer or how they carried themselves, how they conducted themselves. And then they'll score you. And it's usually, it's 1 through 5. I had only once ever seen an interview score that somebody had got a 1. And I don't even think that I think the person interviewing them, it was having a bad day and they gave that individual a 1. Other than that, I have never seen anybody get a 1. It's normally, hey, they came in, they did great. They get the lowest normally I ever see is a 3. And that's average. So, it's not bad.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and open up the questions to everyone else. If you'd like, go ahead and unmute your mic and feel free to ask. We'll give it about a couple of minutes. And I also posted Maureen's contact information, so you should be able to see that. So if you have any follow-up questions after today.
You know what? That's the wrong cell number.
Oh, okay. Let's
Sorry.
change it.
Sorry. It is 650-374. 374. Oh my gosh, why is my mind going break? Let me look at my phone.
I always have to check mine too.
7524. 7524, right? We never call ourselves.
7524. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So if anybody has any questions, we'll give you guys a couple of minutes to go ahead and ask away. If we don't hear anything within that a minute or two, we'll just go ahead and close it from here.
Hi, Maureen. How often are pathways or internships come up? Is that every year, once in a great while?
All the time. All the time.
Hmm.
So what the Pathways program is, again, it's for anybody that is going to school. And it's the whole program, the reason for the program is to get our young folks, and I shouldn't even say young, get anybody that is interested in working for the VA that may not have the time to commit to a full-time job, right? Because they're going to school. So we do have full-time pathway positions, or we have part-time. And with part-time, the goal is to balance out what your needs of school are versus what you can commit to working. So it could be part-time working 20 hours a week. It could be part-time 10 hours a week, whatever works to your school schedule. And the money that pays for this is not the same as what would pay for a general employee. So for myself, for Noni, we are paid out of a different bucket or different buckets of money. Pathways is a, a bucket of money that is set aside from Washington, and it's solely for the purpose of hiring individuals that are still in school that want to work for the federal government. So it doesn't come out of VA Palo Alto's money. It is, we don't have per se limit. For regular positions, we have to have it on an org chart. We have to, it's an established position that we're hiring you into. Pathways, not so much. It's not a real established position, right? Because it's not permanent until the individual either graduates or gets their certificate. Then we would non-competitively convert you into a permanent position. So you may work, for example, you may have a pathways appointment in nursing mental health. And when you get your degree, there's a possibility a position in nursing mental health has opened, whether it's an administrative job or a nursing job or, program assistant, whatever. There might be an opening in that service, but there may not be when you graduate. So the benefit of the Pathways program is we can put you anywhere within the VA Palo Alto that you're interested in working and we feel is a good fit. We will non-competitively, meaning you will not compete for it. We will non-competitively put you in a position that you would excel at. Pathways is the best. You get to know the VA ways. You get a good introduction to what VA does, how we work, what we do, the face of why we do what we do. And then once you graduate, if you want to stay with the VA, we non-competitively convert you into a position.
Perfect.
We
Thank you.
Yeah, we rarely, maybe out of my 30 years, I want to say I've probably had maybe 3 pathway students that did not take positions full time at the VA. And that's only because they went into positions with Stanford or counterparts at Stanford. So they kind of went into the same job that they were doing, but they chose Stanford Hospital versus the VA side. That's the only difference.
No, that sounds excellent. Thank you so much.
Excellent question. Any other questions from the attendees?
Hi, Maureen, and my name is Ryan. I'm from the EDD in San Jose. Thank you for having us. The question is, I was on a LinkedIn event just for VA in general out of DC. They had a LinkedIn video about hiring. A question came up, and then the event ended, so I didn't get the answer. The question is, does it matter if it's the summertime and so close to the ending of your fiscal year? Should clients still proactively go on usajobs.gov, or is it more fruitful to wait till like October, when your fiscal year starts, or does it matter at all?
It does not matter. VA money, you always hear on TV about Congress and, what they're doing, right? VA dollars are secured for 10 years out. So our monies are secured for 10 years in the future with interest. So we don't have, because we are a healthcare agency and the mission of VA, we are never in the situation that we have to worry about money and when is our money coming, that we might shut down. We are never, because in the past, yes, that had happened. We were on, I want to say it was like a 3 or 4 year budget plan. I think it was a 3 year budget plan. And then it came to light, the VA Oversight Committee in Congress and the Senate said, folks, what are we doing here? We cannot have our veterans without health care. So that's when the laws and regulations were changed. And we are now on a 10-year plan, but it has to be secured every 5 years. So within 5 years, they're looking at what we spent in VA and what our future needs are, and then it's secured for 10 years out. So at no time are we ever caught in the budget constraints of not having enough funds to hire the staff that we need or provide the care, or to hire, even we have programs where the VA will pay for a veteran that is in, a rural area to go to their local facility if they're outside and they can't get to a VA, a formal VA. We make sure that those monies are secured for 10 years, but reviewed every 5. So we're never without funding. So we never depend on fiscal year dollars. That's more of a review if, how do I say, for employee wise, the fiscal dollars would have to do more with an incentive or a bonus or performance pay for physicians, that kind of thing. At the end of the year, if we have the money, okay, you might get some kind of recognition, you might get something. But other than that, we do not worry about budget constraints. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other additional questions? All right. I'll go ahead and take this silence as there's no additional question. For those that wasn't able to ask any questions, you can always give her an email, or you can give us a call and we can relay that information over. But from here, I'd like to close this interview. Thank you so much for everybody for attending. Thank you so much, Maureen, for doing this and taking out minutes out of your time and for doing this to give not only our veterans but as well as our case managers a heads up as far as like what to expect when it comes to applying for a federal job. Did you have anything you want to add in, Amelia?
No, just wanted to say thank you for just providing such in-depth information as far as the hiring process for VA Palo Alto goes. I'm just really glad to have the attendance that we did today, and I just thank you, Maureen, for spending the time with us today to answer those questions.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. You're more than welcome, and I'm available anytime. If anybody has any, questions, issues, they haven't heard back, please feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording from here. Thanks again for everybody. Everybody have a great weekend, a safe